rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. That's right. I am your host, Rick. And I have to give a very special welcome back to a longtime Whiskey Warrior P1 who has finally come back into the chat over on Rumble. Welcome back, Daybreak 3. Daybreak 3, thank you very much for joining us. I hope that everything is going better for you. And of course, you know that you'll be joining us a lot more often. But do appreciate you coming back and saying hello to the rest of the folks over on the Rumble chat. That's cool. For those of you that don't go into the chats and don't listen, you know, maybe on the audio portion of the program, or maybe you don't watch me live or whatever, you really ought to try a live show. It's really kind of fun to get up into the chat and start talking to folks. You know, having, there's a lot of differences, different things and so on and so forth going on. But anyway, so there you go. I haven't done this in a while, so let me go ahead and do a rundown of all the chats over on Facebook. I see Tommy, I see Becky. I'm probably going to see the two Marks a little bit later on this evening if they're not already there. Over on Rumble, we have the usual miscreants. We have My News, Bonnie, Buddy Weiser. Of course, I just mentioned Daybreak 3. 3 Chevy, Coco de Whiskey, or Coco de insert name here. We also have, well, Becky is slumming in both places. Let's see, we have G is over there in the Rumble chat as well. Let's see, do I have Nana of JJS is there too. And I don't think I missed anybody, or did I? Well, if I did, I apologize. I'm trying to go back and check. Doesn't look like I did. I think I picked up everybody. Everybody. Anyway, so thank you very much for coming and joining in. Yes, Nana of JJS, I do see you. You are here. All right. Well, my goodness. Got a few things going on for you tonight. Of course, the standard, standard segments, but I do have a question for whiskey tonight, which is awesome. And then, well, it's question of the week. I should rename that to question for whiskey just because. But of course that's a graphic that I'll have to play with and change. So there we go. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, let me see. Tonight is Pops McGroin and his partner leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one. If you're not, that's okay too. Go ahead and place your hand over your heart, and let's have Pops McGroin and partner lead us in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
That's right. God bless America and God bless Donald Trump. Thank you very much for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition played here on the program, it's really not that difficult. All you need to do is record yourself doing the pledge in your style. Then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and it kicks it out. Go to your email, type in the to box, type in fans, FANS, at americanperspective.online, attach that file, and send it off to me, and I will get you into the rotation for leading the Pledge of Allegiance. We do that every night for those of you that are not here very often, and this is your first time. I'm just letting you know we do that every night. So get that in, and you could hear yourself on the program performing the pledge. All right, tonight's headline sponsor is it's Saturday night, so of course it's the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content, to learn about our historical founding, and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or, if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Take a look at this thing. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. And this isn't cheap. It's stitched bindings, goes all the way through the leather on the outside. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if something does go wrong, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you study for and receive your civics badge in scouting. Probably also get you to pass that civics test too. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get yours today. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution. And I appreciate them for allowing me to be an affiliate. All right, folks. So let's go ahead and, let's just jump right on into it. Right here, right now. Our first segment, of course, is On This Day in American History. And, of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. It is filled and chock full of all kinds of little factoids and information about this fabulous country that we call home. And, of course, we'll go ahead and start. Kind of appropriate for some of this. February 1st, sit-ins for civil rights. On February 1st, 1960, 4 black college freshmen from North Carolina A&T State University sat down at a lunch counter in a F.W. Woolworth's store in Greensboro, North Carolina, and asked to be served. They were told no. The counter was for white people only. The 4 sat quietly until the store closed, and then the next day they came back. Again, they were refused service, and again they sat quietly at the counter until the store closed, and returned the next day. The 4 students, Franklin McCain, Joseph McNeil, Ezekiel Blair Jr., and David Richmond, knew they were running a risk of being arrested, beaten, or worse. Across the South, black people were supposed to stay away from whites-only restaurants, drinking fountains, and restrooms, but the 4 freshmen were determined to challenge segregation. By day 4, the store was still refusing to serve them, and many people were stopping by to heckle or stare. But there were also hundreds showing up to support their silent protest. As the word of the sit-in spread, black students in towns across the South began politely asking to be served at whites-only lunch counters. Whenever police arrested them, more protesters stepped forward to sit in their place. The sit-ins gradually had an effect. In July of 1960, Woolworths decided to integrate its stores. Across the South, racial barriers gradually began to fall. The sit-ins helped bring about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which banned the segregation of public facilities. The Greensboro Four, as the four brave young Americans came to be known, had helped make the United States a more just place. "This is my country," said Joseph McNeil, who later served in the Air Force in Vietnam. "I not only fought for it, I fought for the chance to make it right." And that is tonight's On This Day in American History. Well, of course, we have, this is Black History Month, and I personally am not necessarily against it per se, but I need to understand, and I always question why. Why do we need a month? It should be all the time. Black history is American history, as Morgan Freeman, the famous actor, stated to Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes one night. He said, "Black history is American history." He didn't want his history relegated to just a month, and he didn't feel it was right that Black history had a history month. Should be just taught as it is, not just once a year. Anyway, all right, folks. Let's move on. So the commander-in-chief, before I get going, I got to tell you too, it is Saturday night, and therefore I am drinking some whiskey. Here we go. Got Knob Creek, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, aged 9 years, in my bottle. And Mrs. Whiskey grabbed it for me, so she stuck it in the True Grit Roots Network glass for me. And of course, there is always the stones at the bottom. Okay? That is some good stuff. We always got to have some whiskey in the glass before we start. All right. So we have a commander-in-chief back in office. That's right. We do. And he is not taking any crap, to be honest with you, for the country or from other countries or anything else. Let me just show you right here, right now. Here it comes. Bam. U.S. strikes target ISIS attack planner in Somalia. The operation was conducted in coordination with the Somali government, according to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. That's right. He's back, and he's going back after ISIS. Now, you'll recall that he took care of ISIS, and in the last 4 years, ISIS has reformed, recreated itself, and so Donald Trump's going to have to do it again. Well, anyway, I'm sure he's going to get it done, no matter what. So the U.S. military forces are conducting strikes in Somalia, targeting elements of the local affiliate of the Islamist terrorist organization ISIS. An initial assessment of the February 1st strikes suggested that multiple ISIS Somali operatives were killed and that there were no civilian casualties. According to a statement by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth that was shared with the Epoch Times. Doesn't that just sound great? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. I like that. Anyway, sorry. Hegseth said, "This action further degrades ISIS's ability to plot and conduct terrorist attacks threatening U.S. citizens, our partners, and innocent civilians, and sends a clear signal that the United States always stands ready to find and eliminate terrorists who threaten the United States and our allies." The operation was conducted in coordination with the Somali government, he added, and was carried out by elements of U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, which oversees American military operations in the region. The strikes took place in the Golis Mountains in a region of northwest Somalia that is claimed by various insurgent groups and a government body of the unrecognized breakaway state of Somaliland. ISIS quickly expanded in both size and influence throughout much of northern and central Africa, even as it lost most of its territory in the Middle East from late 2015 through 2017. Since then, the terror group has shifted to an insurgency-based terror campaign, setting up highly autonomous local cells in numerous African countries, often recruiting disaffected young men and members of smaller local Islamist organizations. The ISIS affiliate in Somalia, for example, emerged in 2015 as a breakaway faction from the Al-Shabaab itself, a close African ally of Al-Qaeda. U.S. forces, of course, have maintained a presence in Somalia since 2007, providing operational and training support there to government forces against various terror groups. So there we go. President Donald Trump ordered the withdrawal of most U.S. forces from the country near the end of his first term in office. But, of course, that move was reversed by the Biden administration. So, numerous Islamist insurgencies have developed over the region during the last decade and a half, and U.S. forces have been sporadically brought in to deliver airstrikes against ISIS targets in the Golis Hills since at least 2019. So, yep. The boss is back in town. That's true. That's what Buddy says that. The boss is back in town. I think the sheriff is back. That's what it is. Anyway. All right. So we'll go from there. All right. So, let's move on to the next thing. Well, Trump, and believe me, the leftists on social media, they went all nuts over this, saying, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna be buried in all kinds of taxes, and things are gonna go astronomically, just expand in price." Well, okay, look. Yes, tariffs can increase prices. Not going to deny that. I don't even think Donald Trump denies that. But the point is that eventually what'll end up happening is those economic sanctions against those other countries will cause consumers to either switch to American made products, okay, and eventually hurt those other companies, or those other companies will figure out a way to either work around the tariffs, or they'll create a presence here in the U.S. so they don't have to pay those tariffs anymore. Now, granted, okay, look, the tariffs themselves, yes, they are paid for by the prices that we as consumers pay. Not going to deny that. That's the same with just about any other tax, any other cost, anything else that gets added to something that is being built, manufactured, created, and sold in the United States. All of that, it's called the cost of goods and services, okay? So these tariffs that are being assessed against these organizations, you are correct, they are going to be rolled up into the cost and added as a maybe equivalent, not quite so equivalent, it just depends, price on the other side. All right? Now, Trump has signed that order right here in the Epoch Times. A 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada and 10% levies on China started today. So he signed the order to impose those things. Trump said the tariffs were imposed via the International Emergency Economic Powers Act because of the major threat of illegal aliens and deadly drugs killing our citizens, including fentanyl. Okay, so basically what he's doing is he's using these, all right? He's using these as leverage against these other countries to get them to change their policies. I've told you about this before. This is the way this works. Okay, this is the way this works. This is a kind of like a carrot and stick approach. The carrot is, hey, do this before I put the tariffs on you. The stick is, hey, I put tariffs on you. I mean, that's kind of the way this whole thing works. Now, he's done this in the past, okay? He's done this in the past. The left is panicking. They're trying to sow panic in the streets and everything else. I'm telling you, 25%, I mean, realistically, is not going to make that big of a problem. Also, too, keep in mind, all right, that these countries can bypass that tariff if they utilize other countries of origin. For an example, if Mexico decided to use something like, I don't know, Guatemala as an example, they could avoid that tariff by sending us Guatemalan-made goods that are, the same good, the same product, or, send it through Guatemala or whatever. There are ways to go around this, and believe me, a lot of companies, they've been preparing for this for a while. So it's not like this is just out of the blue. I mean, they're making it, the left is making it sound like this is out of the blue. All right. And keep in mind, other countries do a lot of this stuff too. Over in Europe, it's called a VAT tax, which is a value added tax on it. And G points that out. If you were in another country, you would just get a VAT tax or something else. It's not that different, and it can be better. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump has already talked about lowering regular taxes, like taking out, eventually, potentially, he's even floated the idea of getting rid of the income tax completely and just use these tariffs as the income coming into the American government, rather than taxing the income of all of these people. So be a little patient. It might be a little painful at first, but be a little patient. Things will eventually work themselves out. And I'm sure that, just like Colombia freaking folded like a cheap suit when Trump challenged them with these tariffs, and because they didn't allow a plane to land. And actually, by the way, I saw this headline here. I didn't add it into tonight's show, but there was a headline about Colombia is encouraging all of its illegal aliens that have come here to come home. So yeah, anyway, now, 3 Chevy asks, how do tariffs apply to things not grown here with no choice but to buy overseas? Well, first of all, there's a lot of, I don't know of any place, realistically, where we single source particular items. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not like the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-great one when it comes to certain things in dealing with imports, for an example. However, that being said, many of our products come from multiple different areas. For an example, when you talk about coffee, yes, we get it from Colombia, but we also get Arabica beans from other places, such as Hawaii. Kona coffee is grown here in the United States. And so what the effect might be, as an example, what the effect might be is that you may see the public in trying to find other products that are from other countries that are less expensive. What you'll end up seeing is the American people will start shifting where they're buying from, and they'll start buying from other sourced locations. The same thing goes true too with distributors and everything else. They may find other sources for food. Maybe they get it from, for an example, maybe they get this particular piece of produce from Canada or from Mexico, and there's another country, like, again, I'm picking on Guatemala, but maybe Guatemala grows the same thing, but the distributor here in the United States, okay, buys it from Mexico because Mexico is cheaper. But now with the Mexican tariffs, or with the tariffs on Mexico, you end up with now Guatemalan, let's just call it avocados, Guatemalan avocados may end up being cheaper. And so, again, this is market shift, market fluctuation. It's going to happen. The way this works, though, and the purpose of all of this is to entice these countries to influence their own political positions to more closely align with where the United States would like to see them go. In this particular case, in Mexico and Canada, Trump wants them to stop the flow of illegal aliens going through their country to come here to ours. And that's essentially what he's trying to do. With China, yeah, China is just, China's a foreign threat to us and, realistically shouldn't have been played with kid gloves for the longest period of time that we have. Okay. And Trump posts this on Truth Social to kind of let you know, we need to protect Americans, and it's my duty as president to ensure the safety of all. I made the promise on my campaign to stop the flood of illegal aliens and drugs from pouring across our borders, and Americans overwhelmingly voted in favor of it. So, again, how long is this going to be in place? I don't know. Is it really going to be effective? We'll have to see. But it's apparently necessary, according to the president. It's apparently necessary to hold China, Mexico, and Canada accountable for their promises to halt the flood of the poisonous drugs into the United States. So this is obviously a focus on a particular political desire to block to have these countries actually start blocking the flow of drugs and everything else. So, yeah. Again, it may hurt. It's entirely possible that it's going to hurt for a little while, but believe me, the market will shift and everything will fall back into place. I can't say anything more than that as far as that goes. Okay. So don't necessarily panic, and keep in mind, again, certain products, they're going to hurt, but in the long run, things are going to be better for us in the United States in terms of all of that. Okay. I have faith. Gotta have faith. All right. So, there has been a lot of discussion about the incident over the Reagan International Airport. There was also, by the way, another aircraft, a smaller aircraft, a private aircraft that did crash in Philadelphia. It was a medical craft. It was a craft that was transporting a cancer patient, a pediatric cancer patient, and the mother. Don't know I don't have any other particular details other than that, but other than the fact that what I've been told is that the plane was transporting the patient after they had received cancer treatment here back to Mexico. It was a small jet. It was like a Learjet or something like that, a private executive style jet that went, and no other details as far as I'm aware as to why or how the plane crashed, but unfortunately killed everybody on board, and I believe one person on the ground died because of the crash as well. So, but yeah, it was a Learjet 55, and it was transporting a young girl home to Mexico after receiving medical treatment at Shriners Children's in Philadelphia. And so that's essentially what happened. The crash occurred 3 miles from the airport, and there's no other, there's no other information about it. But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah. Sad day. So there was 6 people there. All 6 had passed, and 6 people on the ground were injured. 3 of them have been released. 3 are remaining. So I said 1 died. I think it was 3. I'm sorry. I misspoke. So 3 of them remain at Temple University's hospital for treatment, according to NBC Philadelphia. So initial reports haven't indicated any distress calls, so who knows at this point. So there's, but the other crash, the one in Reagan International Airport, which has been, conversations abound, the FAA diversity hiring that had been, or believe it or not, was actually put in place all the way back to Obama, is now reviewing the hiring decisions and their protocols in doing it. So again, just want to be clear, there's no direct link. There's no direct link at this point between the incident that occurred and the federal hiring practices. However, there is reports of the fact that they had qualified people apply, and those qualified people were not of the correct diversity, equity kind of pattern, if you get my drift. And because of that, they were passed over. And there just isn't enough, apparently, of the other qualifiers that are applying in order to fix all of this. And so that's part of the problem. So anyway, I mean, that's kind of the situation. Now, obviously, Donald Trump has been kind of harping on this for a while. During this, again, I don't want to jump to conclusions. We really don't know. Although I do tell you this much, being understaffed at the ATC, the air traffic control tower is probably a contributing factor to the crash. Not going to say it's the cause, because again, like I said a couple of nights ago, and I think last night, there's going to be multiple. It's not going to be one silver bullet. It's going to be multiple things. Okay. It's going to be multiple things that all lined up in order to make this happen. For an example, the helicopter itself being about 100 feet higher than what it should have been. So, so there you go. But of course, all of that is going to be, fixed or fleshed out, I should say. I kind of got lost because I was like half reading, half speaking at the same time. So anyway, they're in this Just the News article. Let me go ahead and pull that up on the, whoop. My bad. I hit the wrong, button. That's probably going to go off as soon as I go back to the other one. So just let it go. One prospective air traffic control specialist sued in 2015, alleging that the Obama FAA discriminated in its admissions process for air traffic controller training by designing a questionnaire that prioritized minority candidates over others, even those who had completed the FAA's collegiate training initiative. Just the News reported on this lawsuit last year, which is still ongoing, after the FAA had recorded 19 near misses at airports across the country that could have led to deadly air disasters, much like the one that occurred in D.C. on Wednesday. The incident also follows recent warnings that the air traffic system is suffering from quality control issues and staffing shortages that put safety at risk. Again, all of this potentially could be a contributing factor, not saying it was the factor, but a contributing factor to the incident that happened on Wednesday. So, yeah, there's definitely I told you. There is definitely a potential that this is going to be the case. So, no, it's not question of the week yet. I just happened to hit the wrong button. Happens to be real close to the other button, and I just bumped it. So, there you go. Sorry. All right. Well, to move on from that particular part of the story, one of the things that that has occurred is, you remember that CBS 60 Minutes interview with the former presidential candidate, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris? You remember that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and what I'm speaking of is the fact that they had asked her a question and aired two answers for the same question. One answer being the rambling and actually true answer to the question that she answered first time. And then the second was the, shall we say, reboot, where she was given a more eloquent answer, more direct answer, and that's the one that CBS decided to air. Well, CBS, according to the New York Post here, CBS has agreed to hand over the 60 Minutes Harris interview transcripts to the FCC. And those are going to be the unedited, get right, unedited transcript of its October interview. And this is part of Donald Trump's ongoing fight with the network over how it handled the story about his opponent. Trump sued CBS for $10 billion over the 60 Minutes interviewed, claiming it was deceptively edited in order to make Harris look better than what she actually was. Published reports said that CBS's parent company, Paramount, has been talking to Trump's lawyers about a settlement for it. The network said on Friday that it was compelled by Brendan Carr, Trump's appointee as FCC chairman, to turn over the transcripts and the camera feeds of the interview for a parallel investigation by the commission. Now, 60 Minutes, of course, has been resistant in releasing the transcripts for this and all of its interviews. Get this, to avoid second guessing of its editing process. Yeah. Anyway, the case itself, and particularly a potential settlement, is being closely watched by advocates for press freedom and by journalists within CBS, whose lawyers called Trump's lawsuit completely without merit and promised to vigorously fight it after it was filed. If Paramount does settle, it will be the latest in a string of high-profile settlements that Trump has wrangled from old adversaries in recent days. For an example, the ABC News ponied up $16 million, and we can't forget the other one, the $25 million that Meta is getting wrangled from it. So, yeah. The Harris interview, of course, initially drew attention because CBS showed the then vice president giving completely different responses to a question that was posed by correspondent Bill Whitaker in different clips that were aired on Face the Nation on October 6th, and right next to 60 Minutes. So, yeah. Yeah, you know, one thing about it with these journalists, I got to tell you, all of these journalists and these journalism outlets, it's really pretty simple. To avoid getting into this kind of crap, all right, just tell the truth. I mean, how much more simple can that be? Just show us the unedited truth video. If you ask a question and she botches the answer, I'm just pointing at Kamala Harris here, botched the answer, show us the botched answer. Just, I mean, it's not that difficult to be completely honest. If you stick to the truth, you don't have to worry about being stuck up in these kind of lawsuits. You really don't. If all you do is tell the truth, tell the facts, present the evidence that you have of the situation, and forget this partisanship crap. The lies, the cover-ups, it's just so much easier. I mean, George Washington had it right. The whole thing about chopping down the cherry tree and giving the truth and everything, he had it right. I'm just telling you. If that's what you do, okay? If that's what you do, then just go ahead. Just tell the truth. That's all it is. Just tell the truth. Tell the people the truth, regardless of what side you're. I mean, if you're on the wrong side of it, I mean, just be honest. Yeah, man, we screwed up. Geez, we screwed up because we put this person in who was just a complete moron. Oh, speaking of morons, I just got to tell you, some of this goes out to some of you lefties. My Whiskey Warrior P1s just kind of like ignore this sort of statement. All right. But for those of you who are leftist, lunatic, liberal, whatever other Democrat, sycophantic, Kool-Aid drinking morons out there, when I tell you, or when I call you a moron on social media, okay, I'm simply stating a fact. I'm not calling you any kind of name. That's not my style. Okay? That's not my style. All I do is tell you the truth. I know it's tough looking in the mirror. I know it's tough hearing this tough love. I'm doing it for a reason, and it is to wake your butt up from the stupor that you've been put under for the last however many years that you have sycophantically followed these idiots and droogs and morons in the Democrat Party and the mainstream media. That's all I'm doing. I'm simply stating a fact. Has nothing to do with calling names. If I wanted to call you a name, it would be something probably a little bit more creative than moron, by the way. But anyway, there you go. Okay? So if I call you a moron on X, that's not name calling. That's just simply stating a fact. That's it. All right? There we go. Okay. Speaking of SmackDowns. Yeah, that was my SmackDown of the evening. Speaking of SmackDowns, the Department of Justice got a SmackDown. By this. Here in Red State. Friday night SmackDowns. All right. At the DOJ, dozens of January 6 prosecutors were sent packing. As well they should. All right? As well they should. So while we are waiting for Attorney General nominee Pat Bondi to hopefully be confirmed, the interim D.C. U.S. Attorney General Edward R. Martin Jr. isn't sitting around sipping tea. And late on Friday afternoon, he asked about 30 federal prosecutors who worked on January 6 cases over the last 4 years. Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason for it. I mean, seriously, folks, they used an obstruction charge that came out of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act that had literally nothing to do with obstructing of the proceeding the way that it was. That's why SCOTUS went and overturned all of those convictions. They were basically bending the law, attempting to bend the law to their will in order to get convictions. That's what they were doing. So, of course, they need to get out. That's ridiculous. That is sort of unethical of being in lawyership, I would think. But then again, many lawyers are slightly unethical anyway. All right. So, different accounts are reporting different numbers, but according to the at this hour, the Associated Press calls it dozens of personnel fired, and the Washington Post reported about 30. In any case, it's a significant number. So, yeah. So again, the AP reported that the firings were made at the behest of the acting deputy AG, Emil Bove. So, there you go. Anyway, it got a bunch of people's knickers in a twist. Yeah. And of course, the firings continued, by the way. They continued into the FBI. So the FBI itself decided to clean house a little bit more. There is at least 20 senior officials that got dismissed. Now, keep in mind, this is all before Kash Patel becomes the FBI director. So there you go. A number of top here in the National Pulse, a number of top officials within the FBI either left or were forced out of their positions late last night. At least 20 director or assistant director level employees were dismissed or resigned across the country, impacting several major field offices, including Miami, Las Vegas, and the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. itself. The move came just after Kash Patel testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday. Patel stressed the need to disperse FBI resources across the country and what is it? And reorient, sorry, I couldn't read the line, reorient the Bureau to focus on addressing violent crime and not politically motivated prosecutions. So, but this is starting to do that clean out. That complete clean out of the government is continuing as of right now. So, Kash is going to have a smaller workforce when he gets there. So, there you go. Anyway, all right. So, let me just take a quick second here to take a small drink and point something out. Apparently, the Democrats, and as I pointed out to you before, if you're a leftist lunatic moron, and I call you a moron, there's a reason for it. It's called facts. The fact is, somebody that does not learn from their mistakes, yep, that's a moron. Somebody that continues to do the exact same thing and expecting a different result, well, that's the definition of insanity. But that's also being a moron. Here is just one example of why people within the Democrat Party, and I'm not saying everybody, but many of the people that are within the Democrat Party are literally morons. So the DNC was looking at and has been searching for a new DNC chair. Well, apparently, according to the Daily Wire, every single candidate for that spot says that racism and misogyny played a role in Kamala's defeat. Okay? Folks, no, it didn't. I'm just going to tell you this right now. She was a garbage candidate. She was a moron. She couldn't speak to the American people off script. Even when she was on script, she still sounded like crap. She was the definition of one of the most worst candidates that you could have put forth in front of the American people. And what's even worse is the fact that you morons, and yes, I'm talking to the DNC, you morons went and shoved it down everybody's throats. 14 million people, okay? 14 million people voted for Joe Biden, and you essentially took the old man in the wheelchair and shoved him off the cliff in favor of her, okay? It has nothing to do with racism. Because, realistically, she's not black anyway. She was Jamaican and East Asian Indian. Anyway, she never won a primary, as 3 Chevy pointed out here. She never won a primary. She never got any kind of votes. Even her own people inside her own office. There was a high turnover rate in her office because she was incompetent. She was a horrible boss. You had stories of her coming out when she was Attorney General of California that everybody had to stand up and salute her because she was the quote-unquote general. I mean, seriously. DNC, You guys are, if you continue to go down this path, please go down this path. It will just make it so much easier for us to go ahead, okay, and win again in 2026, which is where we're headed, okay? And we're going to do it again in 2026, regardless of what you do. But still, you're making it so much easier for us to sit here and say that, oh, yeah, it was racism and misogyny. I'm telling you right now, if you want a woman president, I'm going to tell you right now, the way to get a woman president is to think more Margaret Thatcher than Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, or any other woman that you're trying to pull forth. You want a woman president? Find a Margaret Thatcher. That's all I'm going to say. Because that woman could have been president. Okay? You guys, this is so ridiculous. Every single candidate for the DNC chair agreed on Thursday that racism and misogyny played a role in the former vice president's election defeat. Okay? 8 of these people, including former presidential candidate Marianne Williamson and former Social Security Administration Commissioner Martin O'Malley, were part of an MSNBC forum, okay, at Georgetown University, where they answered questions from network hosts. Listen to this winning list, okay? Jen Psaki, Simone Sanders, and Jonathan Capehart. Wow, that's a winning list of people. Yeah, anyway, after a question from Capehart for all of the candidates, each agreed that Harris lost to President Donald Trump partly because of culture of racism and misogyny. Yeah. Yeah, just keep going down that path. I'm telling you, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. It's going to be so easy to beat you guys. I mean, and this was the question Capehart asks. He goes, so I'm going to have a show of hands. How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat? Every single candidate quickly raised their hands. And by the way, apparently all the audience members did too. Oh my gosh, you people. Anyway, Capehart said, that's good. You all passed. Yeah, we all passed. Right. I'm telling you, they're not learning. They're not learning. They're going to keep doubling down on this whole idea that we are, meaning America, okay, which, by the way, up until the point that Obama actually came into office, we were well on our way to like completely ignoring somebody's immutable characteristics such as skin color. And trust me, it will come back. It will come back if people stop playing the blame victimhood game. Get yourself into a place where you understand the only person in America who is down where you are is because of your own life choices. Every single thing that you do in your life is a choice. And every single thing that you experience afterward is a result of said choice. Okay? Their delusion is making it to where this is just going to make it easier for us. I mean, honestly, in the long run, this is just going to make it easier for us. Keep going down that path. Keep playing the race role. Keep playing the misogyny role. Keep playing the idea that the middle of America who, believe in God and cling to our guns and everything else is just this space to be flown over. Yeah, keep going. You're going to keep losing is what's going to happen. And this is why I call them morons. Maybe I should have titled the episode that. Oh, anyway. All right. So a report came out. This is hilarious. You want to talk about victimhood? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There's a report that came out. I'm embarrassed for her. Oh my gosh. I didn't even know why. But apparently Kamala Harris was traumatized by the fact that Joe Rogan interviewed Donald Trump. I mean, really? This report is in RVM, okay? RVM News. And it's based out of a newly released book that detailed the 2024 presidential election, and it's revealed this behind the scenes breakdown of negotiations between Kamala Harris's camp and podcast host Joe Rogan. The failed discussions, which took place while then candidate Donald Trump successfully secured an interview with Rogan, provided a major setback for the Harris campaign. Gee, you wonder? I mean, the one freaking, the number one, not even, I mean, just far and away, the number one podcast in America is the Joe Rogan Experience. And your stupid butt didn't bother to, like, I mean, let's be honest, kiss his butt to get on the program. You could have been in front of millions, and Joe Rogan isn't even like the most worst person. It's not like you were going on to, I don't know, say Steve Bannon's War Room, okay, where you were headed into completely unfriendly territory. Joe Rogan is generally friendly toward your side. And what did she do? She said, oh, no. I'm not going to travel to Austin, Texas to your studio. I want you to travel to me. And by the way, it's a 3-hour podcast, and I'm not going to do the 3 hours. You're lucky to get an hour. So apparently this book called Fight Inside: The Wildest Battle for the White House, who was authored by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes, provides a detailed account of how the negotiations between the Harris and Rogan camps fell apart. Okay. So according to the book, Harris advisors struggled to meet Joe Rogan's conditions. What conditions? Rogan was just like, hey, just come to my studio down in Austin, Texas. Just come here and we're going to chat for 3 hours. That's it. That's all we're going to do is just chat. Okay. Just to remind you folks, Trump spent 3 hours and that interview went viral because Joe Rogan didn't talk to him with specific questions, didn't have canned answers from him, didn't have his handlers hanging over every single question word and try to cut everything off. Rogan confirmed in late October of 2024 that he had been in negotiations with the Harris team, suggesting that discussions stalled due to demands from the Harris side. While he had not ruled out the interview at the time, it ultimately never materialized. Now, if you recall, he mentioned it. He talked about it. He talked a little bit about it on there, and that's why I'm saying he basically told him, he's like, no, I'm not flying to wherever you are. I'm not doing that for just an hour sit down. You're coming here to my studio. You want to be on the biggest podcast. And by the way, that podcast reaches the one segment that Kamala Harris was attempting to reach out to. The male population in the demographic of 18 to 40. Come on. The Harris campaign said, we were hoping to fit it in around, but ultimately weren't able to do it. Yeah, they weren't able to do it because they didn't want to. They couldn't put Kamala Harris in front of an actual interviewer who was going to ask simple but yet probing questions into her policies, her positions, her thoughts. The reason why that broke down, and I'm not saying this based off of fact, but this is based off of my opinion. The reason this broke down is because they could not put Kamala Harris in front of an unscripted, uncensored, unedited video, which is exactly why they went to CBS's 60 Minutes and did the 60 Minutes interview and had 60 Minutes cut the interview and change her answers. That's why. Yeah. So, here's what it was. Here's some of the conditions according to the book. According to that came from the Rogan team. No staff in the studio, no topic restrictions, and Harris would have to sign a waiver. And again, Rogan insisted that Harris travel to Austin, Texas for the interview. I mean, really? That's it? Harris attempted to shape the discussion by suggesting topics that they believed would appeal to Rogan's audience, such as social media censorship, weed, and other issues. Rogan's team rejected that idea. As the book describes, Joe just wants to talk about the economy, the border, and abortion. Okay, well, what's wrong with that? The economy, the border, those were the top two concerns of the American electorate. I mean, really? Come on. You're trying to get elected president. You should be asking, begging these people for airtime. Anyway. She was traumatized. She was traumatized. Sort of like Tim Walz the other day. You remember that? Where he was whining about the losing. Anyway. Well, The View. Let's talk about other whiners. The View. Those hens, let me tell you. They melted down over Trump's youngest press secretary the other day. And one in particular, one of my, well, she's not my favorite, believe me. But one of them, Whoopi Goldberg, oh my gosh, she like totally melted down because of the fact that apparently Carolyn Levitt said something about the woke culture. Now, here's the thing, okay, folks. Well, here, I'll tell you what. Take a listen. This is Whoopi Goldberg. It's a little bit longer than 2 minutes, but it's really important to listen to the whole thing. So here it is. Whoopi Goldberg complaining about Carolyn Levitt's comments.
Yeah. I would like this young lady this is her first job. I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because black people couldn't get into colleges, because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world. So please stop using that phrase and talking about, because you don't understand what you're saying. You're saying about yourself that, you know, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust down that door.
And by the way, I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Whatever I'm saying, this is the first time that she's been she may be. But my point is that job would not maybe have been open to her.
No, I understand. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, folks, they didn't have woke back in the day. They didn't have woke, all right? There was no woke. What was the idea of woke? Woke is not fighting for equality, because if woke was fighting for equality, they would recognize the fact that we were already here. Okay, being woke doesn't have anything to do necessarily with skin color. DEI, which is a woke concept, has everything to do with skin color. And that's not what those people fought for, Ms. Goldberg. That's not what those people fought for. They fought for the right to be there despite their skin color, not because of it. That's the whole point. That's what Carolyn Leavitt was saying. She's there because she is effective at the job. She's there because she doesn't need that additional requirement of being a woman. She's there because she is good. And by the way, here in this article in Woke Spy, where that clip came from, well, the clip actually came from X. It came from MRC Newsbusters. But here's the thing. Leavitt holds degrees in communications, political science, has developed a reputation as a skilled and articulate conservative voice. Before being named White House press secretary, she served as the national press secretary for 2024 campaign. She worked as the communications director for Representative Elise Stefanik and previously served as an assistant press secretary in the Trump White House during his first term. Additionally, Leavitt has held roles in the White House Office of Presidential Correspondence and was a spokesperson for a pro-Trump super PAC. She has the experience. She has the knowledge. She has the abilities. That's what got her into that office, Ms. Goldberg. And by the way, Whoopi Goldberg isn't even her name, her real name. That's her stage name. She's Karen something or other. Seriously. Mark Levin talks about it all the time. But anyway, the point being, though, is that no, woke is not what gave her that job. Woke didn't exist because woke looks to reverse discriminate, not make everything actually equal. Coco DeWhisky, or otherwise known as Coco D, insert name here, says her name is Karen Johnson. That's Whoopi Goldberg's real name. It's on merit. That's what Donald Trump's setup is on merit. And no, Ms. Goldberg, that's not true. That she, and by the way, Ms. Behar, Joy Behar, I don't care if you're a Ms., a Mrs., whatever, I don't give a crap. But Joy Behar, no, she wasn't brought in because Donald Trump thinks she's a 10. If you watched her in her first press conference, you would see she has the effectiveness that is warranted for that position. Yeah. And all you're going to do is sit there and cackle and haw and act like the hens that you are on The View. I feel sorry for that one lady at the very end who's supposed to be the Republican representative on The View. which she really isn't much of a Republican anyway, but she's not much of a conservative voice on The View. I mean, I would love to see her inherit more of the guy on CNN. His name escapes me, Scott something or other. But anyway, I would love to see them be more than that. So anyway. Oh, but of course they just sat there and they freaking, yeah. They're just going to pick because of it. Yeah. All right. Well, let's speak about another Democrat moron. Like I said, I should have titled this a little bit differently. Anyway, Jeffries. That's right. Hakeem Jeffries. Apparently, is now the latest in a long line of Democrats who have apparently they talk about it, the MAGA Republicans being, and that's their term, MAGA Republicans, or sometimes extreme MAGA Republicans, being the violent ones. But yet I don't see any MAGA Republicans like myself or anyone else standing up in front of a mic and advocating for street violence. Okay. He apparently on Friday, yesterday, was at a press conference with New York Representative Yvette Clarke. Jeffries complained about his Democrat-run state's high cost of living, President Donald Trump's attempted federal funding freeze, and then, of course, the proposed tax cuts in the so-called, quote, extreme MAGA Republican agenda. Yeah. Jeffries, who stated back in April, and by the way, this is in the Blaze in case you didn't catch that. I may not have said it while I was on for the audio portion of the program, folks. But anyway, Jeffries, who stated in April that threatening political violence is not a sign of strength, but rather an indication of weakness and insecurity, also noted in September that political violence has no place in a democratic society, told reporters when it comes to the Trump agenda, we are going to fight it legislatively. We are going to fight it in the courts. And here's the key. We are going to fight it in the streets. Really? This guy's the House Minority Leader. He's the presumed leader, far up leader of the Democrats. Yeah, he's supposed to be like the heir to Nancy Pelosi whenever Pelosi finally loses her dentures and falls off the face of the earth. Yeah. So the White House apparently took exception to this, which doesn't really surprise me any. But they issued a statement and they were asking whether Hakeem Jeffries was going to apologize for this disgusting threat. Or will he double down on the same calls for violence that have plagued this country for years? Now, Representative Tom Emmer, who is the GOP majority whip, said Jeffries should promptly apologize for his use of inflammatory and extreme rhetoric. President Trump and the Republicans are focusing on uniting the country. Jeffries needs to stop trying to divide it. Well, Tom, Representative Tom Emmer, I'm going to call you Tom. Tom, that is exactly what these morons do. Okay? That is exactly what these morons do. They spend all of their time trying to sow division and strife within this country. And this is part of the reason why I keep calling you morons. That's all you folks do. You have nothing to stand on. Now, Christine Stevenson, a spokeswoman for Jeffries, suggested on X that Republicans were projecting and that when he called for fighting in the streets, the Democrat leader meant nonviolent protests. Really? Really? That's what he meant. That's what he meant. He couldn't have said in his statement, he couldn't have said, so here, we're going to fight it legislatively. This is his statement, but I'm going to change the end. We're going to fight it legislatively. We're going to fight it in the courts, and we're going to fight it with peaceful actions in the streets. He couldn't have said that. He couldn't have said that. I mean, really? No, he chose, we're gonna fight it in the streets. Yeah. Right. Well, this guy is a complete moron. I'm just going to tell you, he is a complete moron. I keep telling him that on his own account. I know they get the messages, they ignore it, whatever. Anyway, Stevenson told Fox News Digital the notion that Leader Jeffries supports violence is laughable. Republicans are the party that pardons violent felons who assault police officers. Democrats are the party of John Lewis and the right to petition the government peacefully. Bull crap. Bull crap. I seem to recall your VP candidate for president was bailing out BLM folks who had gotten arrested for the Summer of Love riots. Yeah, he doesn't want, the Republicans are the party that do that. No. So apparently Maxine Waters back in 2017, this is just one of a multitude of examples here. When speaking at a gala for non-straight youth in 2017, Maxine Waters, who was a Democrat from California, said, "I will go and take out Trump tonight." Yeah, I seem to recall Nancy Pelosi talking about Donald Trump coming to the Capitol building to help dispel the supposed rioters that are, I'm going to say they are rioters, the rioters on January 6th, and Nancy Pelosi saying, "I hope he does show up because I'd like to punch him in the face." Yeah. Waters herself in 2018 also told radicals outside of the Wilshire Federal Building to harass officials in the Trump administration, stating, "Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, in a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere." Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Folks, these people, all they do is they project onto others that which they do themselves, which is part of Saul Alinsky's rules. Okay? That is exactly what Saul Alinsky has in his rules for radicals. One of them is accuse your opponent that which you are doing yourself. I mean, that's a paraphrase, of course. I'm not going to say I quoted it exactly. But, yeah. So, Waters, Cori Bush when she was in, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, all of the Democrats, their rhetoric is consistently dealing with violence. I'm telling you people, they're not going to go quietly. I'm just going to say this. They're not going to go quietly with this entire situation. They are going to do everything they can to disrupt the righting of the ship, because as of right now, they are about as close as they have ever gotten in history to get the American country under their control and under their thumb, to become the totalitarian rulers that they salivate to become. That's what they do. They are looking to do this to America, because if they can bring down America, there will be no vestiges of freedom left in the world. We are the last beacon of hope for the world. Okay? We are the beacon of hope. We are the island that these people who live under these fascistic and totalitarian regimes strive to come to. We are the beacon of light in the harbor. We are the lighthouse, providing the guidance for these people, for those who seek freedom to come to our shores legally and take advantage of it. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Another one, just as another example, okay? Another one in 2018, Senator Cory Booker, Spartacus himself, told activists to go to the Hill today, get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. And again, going back to Nancy Pelosi, she stated in that same year, discussing the policy of separating minors from adults when dealing with illegal aliens at the border, she mentioned, I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. And maybe there will be when people realize that this is a policy that they defend. It's a horrible thing, and I don't see any prospect for legislation here. Yep. Yeah, Chuck Schumer, I recall him making a threat against the SCOTUS, especially in particular Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh. Those two outside the high court, stating that you have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions. Yeah. Yep. Jeffries, you're a moron. You're just a moron. You are a complete moron. All right. So, I'm running a little bit early, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and get to tonight's question of the week. See, now that's when that's supposed to go off, is like later on in the program, not earlier on. It's because I hit the wrong damn button. Anyway, I wonder if I should put a condition on that button and just say, if it's not before X, don't do it. Anyway. All right. Well, tonight's question of the week comes to me from Mark Lanham over on Facebook. And Mark writes, Dear Whiskey, how are you today? Well, I'm doing fine. I hope you're doing well, sir. Anyway, he says, my question is about the press briefings. How does the press briefing work? The press has questions that they need answered, and the press secretary has answers to give, and they come from the president, but exactly how do they anticipate what the media wants? Thanks, Mark Lanham. All right, Mark, here you go. Have you ever seen any of the political shows, miniseries or whatever? I've watched Designated Survivor on Netflix. It was a Kiefer Sutherland thing, and it actually, ironically, it started off the initial episode, and I'm not really trying to give anything away here, but the initial episode as to why Kiefer Sutherland becomes president is because the entire Congress, as well as the Joint Chiefs and everybody who is essentially the higher ups in the country, are sitting there for the president's State of the Union address, and the Capitol building gets bombed. Okay, there you go. There's the premise of the television show. And he was called out as being the designated survivor. Now, his initial job in the series is he was the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development or something along those lines. Anyway, he was like a low-end secretary, and he was about to get fired by the president anyway and given some ambassador job in Timbuktu or whatever. So the name of the show is called Designated Survivor. And the reason why they call it Designated Survivor is because, again, when you gather everybody from all of our government into one space, they hold back one person who is supposed to take over the presidency should something happen to the leaders of our government. Now, not exactly sure how constitutional that necessarily is, but regardless, that's the premise to the show, and that's the name of it, is Designated Survivor. And I kind of enjoyed it. But one of the things that they do is they took you into, and again, I don't know necessarily how accurate this is, but I'm imagining it's probably pretty close in terms of being able to see sort of the inner workings of what would essentially be things like the press corps. Okay. Now there is an office, and this is fact, there is an office for the White House, and the position is called the White House Communications Director. Now, the White House Communications Director's job, it's also called the White House Director of Communications too. It's also known as the official title, apparently, is the Assistant to the President for Communications. And that position is basically a part of the senior staff to the president, but does not have to go through any confirmations. Okay. Now, that particular office holder is responsible for developing and promoting the agenda and leading the media campaign. Okay. And the director, along with the staff that the director has, and there's going to be, quite a few, but they all work on, the major political speeches that the president makes, the inaugural address, the State of the Union address. The communications director basically interfaces with the press corps. They have an office in the West Wing. That position was, by the way, just a little history behind it, was established by Herbert G. Klein in January of 1969 during the Nixon administration. And it was originally separate from the office of the press secretary, but that obviously is kind of got together since then. But what they do is they have, and believe me, the press continually hounds the White House press office, all right, and these folks that I'm describing right now. They continually hound them with questions, looking for interviews, so on and so forth. So there is a huge connection from this office to the press. Now, the way the press briefings work is the president or the press secretary goes and says, hey, we have an announcement to make. We have, something that we need to tell the press. We need to get it out there. So we're going to go ahead and have a press briefing. Now, the White House press room, let me see if I can find where that is. So the White House Correspondents Association controls who gets seats within the press room, the press briefing room. And the press briefing room, of course, happens in a specific room in the White House. It is and I'm trying to find it, the James Brady Press Briefing Room. Okay. And the briefings will typically happen. They're regular events. They're scheduled. And because of the give and take of the press corps with the Office of Communications, oftentimes, you can generally anticipate what sort of questions are going to come out based on what policies are happening. But not every single question, honestly, can be anticipated. However, there is enough give and take, enough talking back and forth, and enough times that questions are asked off the books, off the record, not in front of cameras, where these people who are pretty damn good at their jobs, presumably, are able to anticipate what the press might be looking for in terms of questions. And, of course, being able to develop those answers. Now, keep in mind, all of this is at the behest and the pleasure of the president. The president sets the agenda. The press corps, the White House Director of Communications crafts that into a press-friendly format and is able to anticipate all of these questions. And, of course, the press secretary is the one who gives these press briefings and everything else. But there's an entire group of people that do all of this, that take care of all of this. So yeah, there you go. That is essentially how that kind of works. And yes, Yes, Mark mentions on Facebook, think KJP could have done a better job. Yes, she could have. She was definitely unqualified for that position. Had nothing to do, and being unqualified had nothing to do with her skin color, her sexual orientation, or her sex, any of those. Okay? So, yeah. Also, too, like Buddy points out, sometimes when they're when they're a Democrat, the press is a lot more friendly to the Democrat president. And so therefore the Democrat president will get the questions or have his communications director basically tell them, hey, these are the questions that we want you to ask, and they'll work back and forth. So it kind of depends upon the relationship between the press corps and the communications office of the White House, but that's kind of how they work. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you follow or search up the American Perspective channel. And once you do, hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit all of those thumbs up and like buttons on all of my platforms, whether it's X, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your weekend. Oh, last thing before I go, don't forget, if you haven't already, go to americanperspective.online and sign up for our newsletter. It's a email subscription, and it'll make it easier for me to go and just put a blast out in case something happens. Plus, I'm also planning on putting together some kind of newsletter, probably going to be a weekly thing, and that kind of stuff. So go to americanperspective.online and make sure you sign up there. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.